Here's something most men never figure out. You can do everything right. Say the right things. Plan the perfect dates. Give her attention, affection, consistency, and she'll still lose interest. Why? Because being a good man and being a high-value man are not the same thing. Good men get appreciated, high-value men get chosen. And the difference comes down to 7 specific habits. Not personality traits you're born with, not money or looks. Habits. Things you either do or you don't. Here's the hard truth. If you don't have these habits, women will sense it. They won't be able to explain why, but something will feel off. You'll be the guy they really like but never prioritize. The one they text when they're bored but never chase. But if you develop these habits, everything shifts. You stop being an option. You become the standard. I'm going to walk you through all 7 today. And habit number 3 is the one that separates the men women date from the men women commit to. Now, before I go any further, let me be clear about something. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about manipulation or pretending to be something you're not. High value isn't a mask you wear. It's a way of being. And here's why I'm telling you this. Most advice out there teaches you tricks. Say this line. Wait this many hours before texting back. Play hard to get. That's not what this is. What I'm going to share with you are habits that actually change how you carry yourself. Not performances, patterns. The kind of patterns that, once you build them, become who you are. Because here's what women actually respond to. Authenticity backed by standards. A man who knows his worth and lives like it. Not a man pretending to be confident. A man who actually is. And that's what these 7 habits create. But here's where most men get stuck. They think value is about what they provide. So they give more. They do more. They try harder. And the more they give, the less she seems to want them. It's frustrating, right? You're thinking, I'm being a good partner. I'm showing up. Why isn't this working? Here's the psychology behind it. When you give without boundaries, you're not communicating value. You're communicating desperation. You're telling her, subconsciously, that you don't have options, that your attention is free, that she doesn't need to earn it. And women don't chase what's freely given. They value what feels earned. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about understanding that attraction doesn't work like a transaction. You can't buy interest with effort. You can't negotiate desire with consistency. The men who struggle, they keep adding more to the equation. The men who thrive, they understand that less is often more, that presence beats pressure, that who you are matters more than what you do. And that brings us to the 7 habits that flip this entire dynamic. Here's what we're going to cover. 7 habits. Each one builds on the last. By the end, you'll have a complete framework for how high-value men operate. And pay attention to habit number 3. That's the one that separates men women date from men women commit to. Let's begin. Habit number 1. Emotional steadiness. Here's what this means. High-value men don't react. They respond. When she's upset, when she's testing, when things get tense, they don't match her energy. They hold their own. And this isn't about being emotionless. It's about being grounded. Think about it. When a woman is emotional, what is she looking for? She's looking for stability. She's looking for someone who can hold space without crumbling. Someone who makes her feel safe even when she's not acting safe. Most men fail this instantly. She gets distant, they panic. She gets upset, they get defensive. She pulls back, they chase harder. And every time you react emotionally to her emotional state, you're telling her you can't handle pressure, that you're not the rock she can lean on. High-value men stay calm, not cold, calm. There's a difference. When she's testing you, you don't explain yourself. You don't argue. You acknowledge her feelings without losing your center. That's emotional steadiness. And it's the foundation everything else is built on. But steadiness alone isn't enough. Because the next habit determines whether your attention actually means something. Number 2. Selective attention. Your attention is currency, and most men spend it like they have unlimited supply. They text first every time. They're always available. They drop everything when she calls. They give their focus freely, constantly, without any regard for whether it's being earned. And here's what that communicates. I have nothing else going on. You're my priority, even when I'm not yours. High-value men don't operate like that. They give attention to match investment, not to chase it. If she's engaged, present, putting in effort, you match that energy. If she's distant, short, giving you breadcrumbs, you pull back. Not as punishment, as self-respect. This isn't game playing, it's boundaries. Your attention should feel like a reward, not a guarantee. Something she values because it's not always there. Something she notices when it's gone. Most men are afraid to do this. They think, if I pull back, she'll leave. But here's the truth. If she leaves because you stopped chasing, she was never yours to begin with. And the men who understand this, they never end up begging for attention from someone who doesn't give it back. Which brings us to the habit that makes all of this work. Number 3, and this is the one I mentioned at the beginning, purposeful living. High-value men have something bigger than the relationship. A mission, a direction, something they're building that exists whether she's there or not. And this is what separates men women date from men women commit to. Here's why. When your entire world revolves around her, you become predictable, controllable, easy to read. There's no mystery, no challenge, nothing pulling your attention away that she has to compete with. But when you have purpose, when you have goals that matter to you, growth you're chasing, a life you're building, everything changes. Suddenly, you're not waiting for her to fill your time. You're inviting her into a life that's already full, and that's magnetic. Women don't want to be your purpose. They want to be chosen by a man who already has one. The man with no direction makes her feel like a placeholder. The man with a mission makes her feel like a prize. This is why the most attractive thing you can do is have something you care about more than the outcome with her. Not because you don't care, because you have standards for your own life. And that brings us to habit 4, which is where this really gets tested. Habit number 4, outcome independence. This is where most men break. You can have emotional steadiness. You can guard your attention. You can have purpose. But if you're still attached to whether she chooses you, none of it matters. Because attachment leaks. It shows up in how often you check your phone, how you analyze her every word, how you need reassurance that things are going well. And women feel it, even when you don't say it. Outcome independence means you want her, but you don't need her. You're interested in the relationship, but you're not dependent on it. Here's what this looks like. You're present when you're with her. You enjoy the connection, but you're not calculating her every move. You're not trying to control where this goes. You've already decided that if it works, great. If it doesn't, you'll be fine. That's not apathy. That's abundance. And abundance is the most attractive energy a man can carry. The man who needs her to stay becomes the man she wants to leave. The man who would be okay if she left becomes the man she never wants to lose. Now we're getting into the habits that separate good from great. Habit number 5, setting boundaries. And this is where high-value men become unforgettable. Because anyone can be nice. Anyone can be agreeable. But very few men have the backbone to say no when it matters. Boundaries aren't about being difficult. They're about having standards. It means you don't tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. You don't accept behavior that crosses your line just because you're afraid she'll leave. You don't sacrifice your self-respect for her approval. And here's what most men don't understand. Women test boundaries constantly. Not because they're cruel, because they need to know if you have them. When you let things slide, you're not being easygoing. You're showing her you can be pushed. And once she knows you can be pushed, she loses respect. But when you hold your ground, when you calmly say, "That doesn't work for me," that's when something shifts. She realizes you're not desperate. You're not afraid to lose her. You value yourself more than you value keeping her comfortable. And that's the most powerful position a man can hold. The man who can walk away is the man who never has to. Pay attention to these last 2 habits. They're what most men never master. Habit number 6, nonverbal dominance. Here's something most men completely overlook. Women read your body before they hear your words, your posture, your pace, the way you take up space, the steadiness of your eye contact. These things communicate more about your value than anything you could say. Low-value men shrink, they fidget, they speak too fast, they look away when tension rises, their body screams uncertainty even when their words say confidence. High-value men move differently. They stand tall, not stiff, relaxed but present. They don't rush their movements. They don't fill every silence with nervous energy. When they speak slowly, deliberately, like they have all the time in the world, like they're not afraid of pauses. And when they hold eye contact, they don't look away first. Not from challenge, not from attraction, not from discomfort. This isn't about intimidation, it's about groundedness. A man who controls his body communicates that he controls himself. And a man who controls himself is a man a woman can trust. Most men never think about this. They're so focused on what to say that they forget what they're showing. But women never forget what they feel in your presence. And that leads us to the final habit. 7. Strategic silence. This is the one I said ties everything together. And here's why. Silence is the ultimate display of value. Most men fill every gap. They over-explain, over-text, over-share. They're so afraid of losing her attention that they drown her in it. But high-value men understand something different. Mystery creates attraction, and silence creates mystery. When you don't respond to every message instantly, when you don't explain yourself every time she questions you, when you let tension exist without rushing to fix it, you communicate something powerful. You're not reactive. You're not desperate. You have a life that doesn't pause for validation. Strategic silence isn't ignoring her. It's choosing when to speak and when to let space do the work. After you set a boundary, silence. Let it land. When she's testing you, silence. Don't take the bait. When she's being distant, silence. Match her energy. This habit ties together emotional steadiness, selective attention, outcome independence, and boundaries. It's the behavior that proves you've internalized all of them. Because a man who can be silent is a man who doesn't need approval. And that's the man women can't stop thinking about. But here's what most men miss about all 7 of these habits. Here's the thing about these habits. They don't work in isolation. They compound. Emotional steadiness makes selective attention possible. Purpose creates outcome independence. Boundaries require silence to enforce. When you have all 7, you're not performing high value. You are high value. And that's the shift that changes everything. You stop wondering if you're doing the right thing. You stop analyzing her every move. You stop needing her validation to feel confident. Because confidence isn't something you project. It's something you build. Habit by habit. Day by day. The good man hopes she'll see his worth. The high-value man knows his worth and lives like it. And here's the part most men never understand about any of this. Here's the controversial truth. These habits aren't about getting women. They're about becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase. And here's why that matters more than you think. Women test men because they need to. Not consciously, not maliciously. It's wired into how they evaluate partners. They push. They pull back. They create tension. And they watch how you respond. Not because they want you to fail, because they need to know you won't break. The man who chases when she pulls away fails the test. The man who panics when she's distant fails the test. The man who abandons his standards just to keep her fails the test. But the man who stays grounded, who holds his boundaries, who doesn't lose himself trying to win her approval, that's the man she trusts. That's the man she respects. That's the man she commits to. These 7 habits aren't tricks to manipulate attraction. They're the foundation of a man who can be trusted with a woman's heart. And the irony is this. The moment you stop trying to be chosen is the moment you become the obvious choice. So ask yourself, are you building these habits for her? Or are you building them for the man you want to become? because that answer determines everything. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 habits do you struggle with most? Which one hit you the hardest while watching this? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Because here's what I've noticed. The men who engage with this content, who actually reflect on it, who put it into practice, they're the ones who change. Not just in dating, in how they carry themselves, in how they see themselves. And that's what this channel is really about. It's not about tricks to get women. It's about becoming the man who doesn't need them. The man who attracts naturally because of who he is, not what he performs. If you're still here, you're already different from most men. Most people click away. Most people don't want to hear the truth. But you stayed. And that says something about you. So take these habits. Start with 1. Build from there. Because the man you become from this process is worth more than any single relationship. And that's the truth most men never learn. I'll see you in the next one.